Part 26. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 251. My mother needs to know that the assassin last night is real, and it is also true that he went to the Queen Mother's place. But many people have seen this matter. If someone reveals it, the Queen Mother, may not be able to do it, right? No matter what the purpose of the Queen Mother's continued stay here, the position of the Queen Mother is always needed. It is just to give him to me for one day. The Queen Mother will not disagree, right? Say it. Yenkauj took a step back, waved his hand and said, Yefe, bring Mr. Su to me. I want to cross-examine him carefully. At this moment, Qin Wanyu was completely confused. She really didn't expect that she would be so defeated by Yenkauj, and there was no room for counterattack. Seeing Yenkauj leaving with Sul Yang, Qin Wanyu was so angry that her teeth itched, but there was nothing she could do. On the other side, just as he brought Sul Yang into his bedroom, Yenkauj threw himself into his man's arms and nuzzled him. Well, Lang Jun, you are finally mine again, I'm so happy. Why are you doing this? Sul Yang shook his head and smiled bitterly, touching Yenkaoj's head, feeling heartbroken. This silly girl actually started such a big fight for herself. Seeing the two of them being so intimate, Yefe bit her lips lightly, feeling envious of their relationship. That's great, Your Majesty looks so happy. If I were Your Majesty, I would be so happy, right? Thinking in his mind, Yefe's strange thoughts deepened. Then immediately after, the two people hugged each other and rolled onto the bed. From then on, with Yefe's continuous assists, various deliberate opportunities, and good temptations, Yenkauj gradually began to make a comeback, and every time he was able to counterattack and monopolize Sul Yang. Qin Wanyu, on the other hand, was so angry that her teeth itched. She wanted to punch Yenkauj in the face several times, but she couldn't do it at all. There was nothing she could do. It can be said to be a great victory over Kauj. With the addition of Yefe, although Yefe herself is just a theorist, her behavior of deliberately creating opportunities to let Yenkauj win is still somewhat effective. The best friends cooperated and had a tacit understanding, which allowed Qin Wanyu to retreat step by step. In the end, it was almost difficult for Qin Wanyu to even see Sul Yang. How could Qin Wanyu be able to endure this? So, relying on her rich experience, Qin Wanyu began to fight back. However, this also made the competition between the two figures at the top of Daxia become more and more intense. In the past few days, Sul Yang had hardly left the palace. Often, he would just come back from one person's house and step into his own house, only to be called away by another person. Naturally, the fight between Yenkauj and Qin Wanyu did not pay attention to the main palace Qin Benjao at all. Sul Yang even went home much less often, so naturally he did not have much time to accompany Qin Benjao. This day, near noon, Sul Yang stumbled back from the palace and stepped into his home. He secretly swore in his heart that he would never enter the palace again today. It's really terrible. Last night, he was still at Qin Wanyu's place in the first half of the night, but in the second half of the night, Yenkauj took him away on the grounds that the palace assassins had not been found yet and he wanted to protect Mr. Su. Then, in the early morning, Sul Yang had just gotten up, and before he could have breakfast, Qin Wanyu suddenly appeared again and abducted Sul Yang while Yenkauj went to court. In the morning, Yenkauj, who had gone to court, didn't even bother to deal with the memorial. He hurried to Qin Wanyu's place and took away Sul Yang. God knows what he went through during this half day and night. The two women at home really enjoyed eating meat, eggs, and milk, but Sul Yang felt like he was going to die. Now Sul Yang just wants to go back to the room and have a good sleep. Yenkauj and Qin Wanyu had a reasonable allocation of one person for the whole night and one person for the rest of the night. They both had a good rest, but Suliang didn't even close his eyes. But just when he walked into the room, Qin Benjao came forward, biting her red lips, pulling Suliang's sleeves, with tears in her eyes, looking miserable, and said pitifully, "Suliang, you don't love me anymore. How can you say that?" Suliang was completely stunned. He almost thought that the two people in the palace had said something to his girlfriend in order to monopolize him. He quickly hugged his girlfriend and softly comforted her, "My Benjao is so cute and charming, how can I won't love you anymore. But, the time Lang Jun has spent with me recently has been a bit short. I feel like I haven't seen Lang Jun for a long time." Qin Benjao said aggrievedly, her voice choked with sobs, and she was almost crying. Hearing this, Suliang sighed, feeling full of guilt for his girlfriend. Either actively or passively, Suliang has been spending time in the palace every day these days, enjoying the two magnificent men in the palace and enjoying themselves in every sense of the word, but he has neglected his girlfriend. "Benjao, I'm sorry. This is indeed my fault. Don't worry, I won't go anywhere in the next few days. I will stay at home with you." Not to mention accompanying his girlfriend, Suliang felt that if he went to the palace again, everyone would be dead. Hearing this, Qin Benjao immediately burst into laughter, raised her head, and looked at her boyfriend happily. "In that case, Suliang will go shopping with me for a date. Since I came to Shengjing, I haven't been with Lang Jun for a long time. It's a date." "Okay." Suliang nodded, naturally not refuting his girlfriend's request. Then, the two of them dressed up carefully and finally left the house before the royal palace and the decree from the Queen Mother and Her Majesty arrived. On the streets of Shengjing. As before, the streets of Shengjing are full of bustling scenes at this time. Perhaps because the new emperor ascended the throne and the ancestors protected him, which gave the people great confidence, Shengjing at this moment seems to be more prosperous than before. Qin Benjao held her boyfriend's arm and rested her little head on her boyfriend's shoulder. She looked intimate, with a smile on her face and beautiful eyes shining, looking left and right. This time, the two of them had no exact destination, but as long as they were around each other, even hanging out like this, it was extremely fun and leisurely. And just then, looking at a clothing store on the street, Qin Benjao pulled her man to a stop, pointed at the store, and said happily, "Suliang, Suliang, let's go in and buy something to give to master as a gift." Hearing this, Suliang glanced at Qin Benjao in surprise, and couldn't help but praise, "Okay, my Benjao has become sensible. When I go shopping with my boyfriend, I can think of master. Not bad, not bad. She really deserves to be Benjao. This is definitely a good apprentice." However, Suliang never expected that his sinister lady was much more sinister than he imagined. Master. Volume 1 Chapter 232 The Empress was beaten and tied up with ropes, but today she regains her husband's strength. Naturally, I will be back a little later. Moreover, the master is coming back soon. The master and the husband have not seen each other for a long time. It must be the time when the master and the husband are tired. If they don't increase the favorability of the husband, won't they have to stay alone in the empty house for a long time? I don't want it. Thinking in his mind, Suliang led Qin Benjao into the store. Soon, the waiter in the store saw the two of them and hurriedly greeted them, "Hey, are you two customers coming to my store to look at clothes?" Qin Benjao nodded, looking around at the clothes in the store, and asked, "Seller, do you have all the styles and models of clothes in your store? Guests can rest assured, there is no more comprehensive clothing store in Shengjing than ours." The waiter introduced hard, but suddenly the conversation changed. Looking at the close gestures of the two guests, I think the two guests must be lovers, right? There is an event happening in my store right now. As long as couples come in, they can guess word riddles. You draw and I guess, testing whether the couple is in tune with each other and has a perfect tacit understanding. How about you two guests, are you interested in participating? Chin Benjeo, who had never participated in such an event, immediately looked at her man with interest after hearing this. See this? Suliang nodded, okay, we will participate. This game is not unusual for Suliang, but after all, his girlfriend is interested in it, so he just plays it with his girlfriend. This little tacit understanding game is a great opportunity to enhance your relationship. Everything is for the happiness of my girlfriend. Chapter 347, Winning over the main palace. Waiting for the store to hand over the pen and paper, Chin Benjeo took the pen and paper, looked at Suliang seriously, puffed up her cheeks and said, Suliang, don't peek, be sure not to peek. Okay, okay. Suliang smiled and nodded, joking, compared to the tacit understanding with his wife, Suliang has never convinced anyone, okay. With the reconciliation of yin and yang again and again, and the touching of the soul again and again, the two people have almost become each other's shape from body to soul. Is there still a tacit understanding? Raising her fist towards Suliang as if to demonstrate, Chin Benjeo turned around, found a deserted place, and wrote a few words on a white paper. Immediately afterwards, running back with small steps, Chin Benjeo hid the white paper with written words behind her and asked proudly, Suliang, I have written it, guess what I wrote? Let me tell you, what they wrote is very complicated. If you can't guess it, let's see how I deal with you when I go back. Okay, okay, if I can't guess it, everything is up to you. Suliang nodded, then spread his hands and said helplessly, Benjeo, I know you like me, why do you write it on paper? There is no need to doubt the affection between us. Bar. Ah. With a scream, Chin Benjeo took out the white paper from behind and showed it in front of Suliang. What was written on it was indeed her full love for Suliang. See this? The young man on the side broke his palm and said knowingly, Oh, madam, congratulations to you. You and your husband are really in tune with each other and have a perfect understanding. Hearing this, Chin Benjeo immediately laughed happily. He said that I was Suliang's wife, and that Suliang and I had a good connection, so happy. But then, Chin Benjeo asked curiously, Suliang, how did you guess what I wrote? When faced with his girlfriend's problem, Suliang smiled and said nothing, looking enigmatic. Guess what kind of tacit understanding is needed for this thing? Isn't this a joke? Since you are already cultivating immortality, you can naturally peek at something written on a piece of ordinary white paper. You just need to extend your perception, right? So, why are the immortal cultivators in this world not as good at using this power as an outsider like me? After a good date with my girlfriend, I fed my girlfriend well, and finally made my girlfriend happy. Suliang planned to teach the mother and daughter in the palace a lesson. These two people are really going too far. They are all one family and they are fighting like this. What is going on? If outsiders see it, they will make a joke. Then, Suliang decisively sent someone to send a message and called them all to the mansion to come before him. Sitting in front of the stone table under the pavilion, Suliang drank tea and sighed helplessly as he looked at the two women sitting on his left and right, who were already hostile and smelled of gunpowder. They are all obviously members of the same family, so where did these two get so angry? Shaking his head and sighing, Suliang reminded the two of them, Chao Ji, Wan Yu, you two were a family even without me before, and now, we are even more of a family. A family should live in harmony. What's the point of fighting like you two? Why do you need to decide whether to win or lose? What's more, there is no winning or losing in this kind of thing. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 252. What's more, you two, one is the empress of a country, and the other is the queen mother of a country. You represent the whole of Great Xia. If you two are not at odds, I am afraid that Great Xia will fall into chaos. The husband, Lang Jun, taught you a lesson. Qin Wanyu and Yang Kaoj said in unison, and it seemed that they really weren't so hostile anymore. See this? Suliang nodded with satisfaction. He felt that both of them had listened to his words, so he smiled and said, just understand. Okay, you two can go back to the palace for now. I plan to spend some time with you these days. Benjeo, you two, you were so fiercely fighting over each other a few days ago that you actually left Benjeo in the cold. Yes. Yang Kaoj and Qin Wanyu both nodded in agreement, stood up, and walked out side by side. Seeing the two people leaving, Suliang felt full of accomplishment. Look, the empress of a country and the queen mother of a country both obey her own words. What is this called? This is called family throne. However, Suliang never expected that these two people had promised well in front of him, but in fact, they did not take his words seriously at all. Turning around and walking to a place where Suliang couldn't see them, the two of them glared at each other fiercely and left. Even in order to snatch Suliang, both of them began to have Qin Benjeo's idea, and began to secretly win over the cute fairy. Seeing that Yang Kaoj had gone back to the palace to handle government affairs, Qin Wanyu turned around, found Qin Benjeo, held Qin Benjeo's hand, and said with a smile, Sister Benjeo, how are you doing lately? Qin Benjeo nodded cutely, not bad. That's good. Qin Wanyu smiled and nodded, and then said, if you need help with anything, please just tell me. But, if someone bullies my sister will definitely help her, right? After hearing this, Qin Benjeo immediately nodded seriously, that's natural. Seeing Qin Benjeo agreeing, Qin Wanyu showed a successful smile. But after Qin Wanyu left, Yang Kaoj turned back and sat in front of Qin Benjeo, holding Qin Benjeo's hand as well. Benjeo, sister has been busy with political affairs these days, so she has neglected you. Speaking of which, it's my sister's fault. However, just because my sister has ascended the throne, I can arrange some things for you, such as your marriage. Hearing this, Qin Benjeo's eyes lit up, she threw herself directly into Yang Kaoj's arms, and said happily, Sister Yang, you are so kind. While gently patting his sister's back to comfort her, Yang Kaoj showed a proud smile. Naturally, she has never coveted the position of the main palace, but, wouldn't it be flattering to use the main palace's marriage to win over Qin Benjeo, the main palace? The plan goes through. Not just this time. Next, Yang Kaoj and Qin Wanyu often came to Qin Benjeo and used various means to win over Qin Benjeo, hoping that she would stand on their side and hope to defeat the other party. It has to be said that the two of them had good intentions in order to win. However, the two of them did not expect it. One night, after some reconciliation of yin and yang, Qin Benjeo lay in the arms of her man, looking like she was chatting, but said casually, speaking of which, it's strange to win over my sister and the queen mother recently. The two of them have promised me a lot of benefits. Sister Ying wants to marry Sulang to me. The queen mother has promised me that I can see Sulang every day in the future. But if they accept the benefits, it seems like they have to help them deal with someone. It's really complicated. I can't figure it out at all. Hearing this, Suliang was instantly angry. In Suliang's view, it was normal for his girlfriend to be cute and confused and not understand what the two of them meant, but how could he not understand what they meant? Isn't this just an attempt to win over Qin Benjeo, the main palace official, to attack the other party? This is the rhythm of backyard fires. Thinking about what he had called the two of them to come to him and patiently warn them to get along harmoniously, and both of them agreed, Suliang's face immediately darkened. At that time, I thought Yang Kaoj and Qin Wanyu still listened to me, and they would definitely get along well in the future, but now it seems that I am overthinking everything. I really didn't expect that these two people were so disharmonious. It seems that I must restore the dignity of the head of the family. At least, let the two of them know the consequences of fighting like this behind their backs and cheating on themselves. Looking at her man's appearance, Qin Binjao smiled, as if his evil plot had succeeded. In fact, this little scumbag couldn't understand what his sister and the Queen Mother were saying. She simply revealed this to her man on purpose. Next, there's a good show to watch. Thinking in her heart, Qin Binjao smiled even happier. This little belly is so sinister. In the Yanhe Hall, Yang Kaoj was sitting on the main seat, wearing a dragon robe, with a calm and majestic expression. He looked at the government memorial on the table in front of him, frowning slightly, and was thinking seriously. And just then, squeak! The door was opened, and Yang Kaoj subconsciously looked up, only to see Suliang walking in. Only. Looking at Suliang in front of her, her hands behind her back, her expression was calm. Just standing there, there was a majestic and domineering aura coming from her. She was more like an emperor than she was. Seeing his man's majestic look that was different from his usual state, Yang Kaoj didn't have time to think about it, smiled and said, "Lang Jun, please wait for me for a while. This government matter here is very urgent and must be dealt with immediately." "That's fine." However, Yang Kaoj didn't expect that as soon as she finished speaking, Suliang strode behind her. Immediately afterwards, Yang Kaoj felt that Suliang leaned down and wrapped his arms around her legs like he was holding an anxious child, and picked her up in one fell swoop. "Ah!" Yang Kaoj screamed. It was so shameful to be picked up in this position. Although she was neatly dressed now, and behind her was the man she loved most and wanted to entrust to her, this posture was still a bit embarrassing. But before she could say anything, Suliang sat directly in her seat, and then he held her in his arms, hugged her tightly, and grasped the vital point with both hands. "At Lang Jun, I'm still dealing with political affairs. You can't wait any longer." Yang Kaoj pouted and scolded, "Anyway, it will always be yours. You can eat it whenever you want. There's no need to rush it, right?" But soon. Under Suliang's extremely superb skills, Suliang pinched and grasped two completely different beans as he moved up and down. "Well." With a muffled groan, a shy blush appeared on Yang Kaoj's cheeks, and his whole body softened. He collapsed in his man's arms, his eyes were hazy and confused, his mouth was slightly open, and he was breathing slightly. But after a moment of relief, Yang Kaoj came back to his senses. While feeling his man's movements, he sat on it and continued to deal with government affairs. Simply speaking, the current position of her lower abdomen is a little lower than the table, so she doesn't have to worry about getting the paper on it wet. After waiting for Yang Kaoj to finish handling the urgent government affairs, Suliang came close to Yang Kaoj's ear and whispered, "I heard that you have been making little moves recently. If you don't listen to me, you're just going to keep fighting with Wan Yu, and you actually have Benjao's idea. Moreover, you want to use my engagement with Benjao as a means of blackmail. Oh, you, sister, are doing really well." Hearing Suliang's words, Yang Kaoj's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately realized that his intentions had been exposed. "No matter what you do, you will be punished by Lang Jun. Why are you still looking forward to it?" But even though he was extremely panicked and guilty, Yang Kaoj still said stubbornly, It's not me who was wrong anyway." The words just fell. Snapped. Suliang suddenly lifted up Yang Kaoj and slapped her on the erect part. The slap made Yang Zi scream, her face turned red immediately, and her voice was indescribably charming. "Why are you hitting people?" Turning his head, Yang Kaoj blinked pitifully, trying to get away with being cute. Suliang, however, didn't accept this trick at all. His face was a little gloomy, It's okay if you made a mistake, but you still don't admit it. Heh, it seems that I was too kind to you in the past. Say it. He actually stood up and pressed Yingqiao on the table in front of him. Then, he raised his palm and slapped Yingqiao on the erect part of his body. Pop. I told you not to listen to me and continue fighting. Suliang had a stern look on his face. The Punisher was in charge of a country, and the Empress, who was the most powerful among the people, said, "Let me go." Yingqiao kept struggling with his limbs, resisting Suliang's punishment, and wanted to break free from Suliang's restraints. However, it's of no use. Snapped. Suliang slapped Yingqiao again, on the erect part of his body. Let's see if you dare to agree to other people's things indiscriminately in the future. Lang Jun, if you do this again, I will be angry. Yingqiao was still resisting and struggling, and couldn't help but say, "Hey, I'm not even angry." "How dare you be angry?" Suliang raised his eyebrows, crackled, and fought more vigorously. It didn't take long before Yingqiao's pretty face turned red. He admitted his mistake in a low voice. "Lang Jun, I know I was wrong. You, just let it go better than others." As he spoke, Yingqiao turned his head and looked at Suliang's face, which still didn't look much better. His body couldn't help but tremble. Only then did she realize how terrifying her angry husband was. It's not like you can fool him by being cute. Whoa, scary. But she didn't know that something even more terrifying was still waiting for him. The polite ones are clear and the scum are clear. Suliang straightened up and looked at Yingqiao condescendingly. "You've done so many wrong things, do you think it's over like this? How can it be? It's just a few slaps, how can I make you obedient? Lang Jun, what do you want to do?" As if realizing something, Yingqiao huddled up, shivering, and looked at Suliang with fearful eyes. Immediately afterwards, under Yingqiao's frightened gaze, Suliang took out a rope with his backhand, recreated the art of binding, and tied a tortoise shell pattern on Yingqiao's body. Immediately afterwards, holding Yingqiao, who was tied into a ball, Suliang used a spell to hide his figure and presence, then kidnapped His Majesty and planned to carry out the next scene. "Your Majesty, you want to invite me over? And, why don't you go to Wen Chaoji's palace?" Listening to the sound in her ears, Qin Wanyu was extremely happy. Since the king has already come to the palace, and is still in Yingqiao's palace, but instead of calling him Yingqiao, he calls himself. Doesn't that mean that the king is more interested in himself? As for why she was asked to go to Yingqiao's palace instead of coming directly to her, Qin Wanyu took it for granted that Suliang wanted to pursue excitement. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 253. Being in Bai Quan's room, Bai Quan's bed, doing this and that with Bai Quan's beloved man, this must be a beautiful thing. It seems that my strategy during this period is effective. After all, I am better. Thinking happily in her heart, Qin Wanyu chose a dress for a long time and finally dressed up. I saw. Qin Wanyu is wearing a luxurious purple palace dress. The tube-top skirt tightly squeezes a pair of proud peaks, showing profound connotation. The skirt below is close to the body, covering that proud part, showing off the plump figure. Volume 1 Chapter 233 Madam, you don't want your daughter to suffer, right? A pair of plump and beautiful legs are wrapped in a skirt, which highlights the plump beauty. Further down, there is a pair of high-heeled boots, restraining the beautiful legs, but adding a sense of firmness to the plump and beautiful legs. Looking in the mirror, Qin Wanyu smiled softly. When she thought about what was going to happen with the king in the future, she couldn't help but blush. Her legs rubbed unconsciously, her eyes were as charming as silk. With this charming look, even if it was a stone statue, I'm afraid everyone will be excited. After dressing up, Qin Wanyu went to Yang Kao's bedroom without stopping for a moment. However, as soon as she entered the door, she was stunned. I saw that Yang Kao was tied up, with a tortoise-shell pattern on his body. Suliang was sitting next to Yang Kao, pulling the rope from time to time, causing Yang Kao to struggle repeatedly, but the rope became tighter and tighter. The outline is also becoming more and more prominent. Yang Kao's eyes were filled with tears, and he looked at Suliang with his mouth pouted. His eyes gradually rolled up due to the continuous tightening of the rope, which was undoubtedly miserable. "Husband, husband, what is going on?" Qin Wanyu said with a slight stammer in her voice, already feeling a little scared and uneasy in her heart. She was very sure that when her king asked her to come, he definitely wasn't trying to win Kao together. That means, "Is your majesty going to torment me?" At this thought, Qin Wanyu forced a smile and already wanted to run away. "Husband, there is something urgent for me to do, so I will leave first." "Say it." Qin Wanyu turned around and left. However, as soon as she turned around, she saw that her king had already appeared at the door, blocking the door. "Go in," Suliang said calmly, but with a cold look, which made Qin Wanyu even more uneasy. She felt that her king seemed different from usual times. "Look at the king's appearance, is the king angry?" She followed Suliang in timidly. Qin Wanyu had just stood up when she heard Suliang asking, "Do you know you were wrong?" "I don't know where I went wrong." Qin Wanyu pretended to be aggrieved and soft, and moved closer to Suliang. She grabbed Suliang's arm with her little hands and swayed back and forth. "Husband, you scared me, please stop playing, okay?" However, Suliang, however, did not tolerate her at all. He smiled and took action directly, grabbing Qin Wanyu and pressing her on her legs. Then, he hit the softer and more elastic place behind her with a palm. Snapped. With a crisp sound, Suliang scolded, "I told you not to listen to me." "Ah!" Qin Wanyu screamed in surprise and kept beating her legs. "Husband, husband, what are you doing? Tell me what I did." Still pretending to be stupid. Suliang raised his eyebrows, and then slapped him again. "Pa! I asked you not to admit it." "Hey, weren't you and Cao Ji fighting fiercely? You dared to win over Benjao. Why, you dare to do something, but you don't dare to admit it." At this moment, Qin Wanyu completely lost all thoughts of taking chances, became honest, and said aggrievedly, "Yes, she was the one who started it, and she was not wrong. You two have the same words, and you are very good at shirking responsibility. Tisk, it seems that you haven't realized your mistake yet." Suliang's face darkened, and as he spoke, he struck decisively, with a series of crisp slaps that made Qin Wanyu's branches tremble. If there were only her and her king alone, Qin Wanyu would not feel too uncomfortable, at most she would be a little ashamed. Maybe, later on, she would be able to taste the taste of her king. But I was harsh-spoken, but I was taught a lesson, and all my little cleverness was exposed by the king. This is very shameful, right? Moreover, he was taught a lesson in front of his nemesis Yang Kao, which was even more shameful. Then, after a moment, feeling the overwhelming sense of oppression brought by the extremely powerful majesty and domineering power behind Suliang, Qin Wanyu finally admitted her mistake obediently. "Husband, if I know I was wrong, please let me go bar." "Humph, let you go." Suliang snorted softly, "What a beautiful thought." Then, in the blink of an eye, Yang Kao and Qin Wanyu had already knelt down in front of Suliang. They all lowered their heads and looked at Suliang aggrievedly. They were obedient and looked like they were being treated badly. They no longer had the energy they had before. An empress who is in charge of a country and has more than 10,000 people, a queen mother who is the mother of the world, and two top figures in Daxia, but they are like little recipients. If this is seen by outsiders, shouldn't this be shocking? Walking around in front of the two people, Suliang looked at the two people who had become more honest, but he still didn't think that the two of them would stop fighting and live in harmony. After all, I have already been deceived once. Rolling his eyes, Suliang quickly thought of a mitigation measure. About how to make two people who are incompatible with each other recognize each other. Then of course you have to give full play to the character's strengths. In this regard, Suliang said that he was familiar with it and had never done it before. His girlfriend and sister didn't go through all kinds of troubles at the beginning, but in the end, they were all convinced by him. Suliang felt that he had a lot of experience. Husband, can I leave now? Qin Wanyu raised her hand weakly and asked timidly, I promise that I will never mess around again. No. Suliang shook his head, I don't believe you, you have already lied to me once. After hearing this, Yang Kaoj and Qin Wanyu both lowered their heads and did not dare to speak any more. Indeed, I have already deceived him against his will, how can I have the nerve to ask him to believe me now? But then, the two of them heard Suliang say, but don't worry, I've already figured out what to do next. The moment the words fell, Yang Kaoj and Qin Wanyu flew into the air and were thrown onto the bed by Suliang. One hand kept sliding on the tightly bound Yang Kaoj. Feeling the strength of Yang Kaoj's struggle, Suliang approached Qin Wanyu and subconsciously licked his lips. They say the wife is plump, mature, and charming. Looking at it now, it is indeed the case. I just don't know, madam, can you let Su have fun for once? You. Qin Wanyu's body was trembling slightly and she couldn't even say a word. She was still worried about how her king would punish her. She had no idea what Suliang was doing now. See this. Suliang's hand decisively climbed to the top of Yang Kaoj's proud peak, and then he kneaded it hard, making Yang Kaoj keep groaning and struggling. The rope was getting deeper and deeper, and Yang Kaoj almost wanted to got screwed. Madam, I advise you to be more sensible. Since Su is here, he cannot leave empty-handed. Between the wife and your daughter, Su must have one. After saying this, Suliang let go of the proud peak and went all the way down. He was about to approach the highlighted deep valley. Seeing this, Yang Kaoj struggled decisively. It's not that I reject Suliang's approach, but I feel that I might not be able to bear it. Yang Kaoj knew clearly the effect of her husband's special attack on her. Now the rope was getting tighter and tighter. She was already approaching her limit. If she let her husband touch her again, even with just a touch, Yang Kaoj felt that he might have a gurgling stream gushing out on the spot. Fortunately, Suliang's hand stopped on Yang Kaoj's abdomen, making Yang Kaoj breathe a sigh of relief. But then, Suliang approached Qin Wanyu with a malicious smile on his face. Madam, you don't want me to embarrass your daughter, do you? After blinking, Qin Wanyu also realized what the king of her family was doing, so she immediately made a gesture of shame and unwillingness, put a hand on her clothes, and shouted, Stop talking, I am willing, I just ask you to let her go. The willingness in Qin Wanyu's words was true, and so was the shame and reluctance on her face. After all, this is to serve the king in front of a little cockroach like Yang Kaoj. The level of shame is simply overwhelming, okay. But even so, Qin Wanyu knew that she couldn't resist Suliang at all. The logo shirt was gently untied, and the gorgeous logo shirt fell to the ground, leaving only a thin piece of light clothing. Regardless of the proud peaks, the flat belly, the deep valleys, or the plump and beautiful legs, at this moment, everything was displayed in front of Suliang. Biting her red lips lightly, Qin Wanyu looked ashamed, but in fact she felt extremely ashamed in her heart. Then, Under the helpless gaze of Ying Keoj, she came behind Sul Yang, lay down on Sul Yang, and began to serve. With hazy eyes, Qin Wanyu held a pair of proud peaks in her hands and kept rubbing and massaging Sul Yang's body. She bit her red lips lightly with her teeth, her pretty face flushed, and she looked soft and charming. The tulle-light clothes bring some friction, which is mixed with the softness, elasticity, and smoothness of the proud peak, bringing the same stimulation. In just a moment, the massage on the back becomes extremely hot. Seeing Qin Wanyu already lying on her back and her delicate hands sliding towards her vital parts, Sul Yang broke away from Qin Wanyu and came to Ying Keoj. Untying the rope around Ying Keoj, Sul Yang lifted Ying Keoj's chin and smiled mischievously. "Madam has already taken action, does your majesty still want to watch? Your majesty, you don't like the instability of the harem, right? Well." Ying Keoj whimpered slightly and stood up. Immediately, the dragon robe was scattered on the ground, and a slender, perfect body appeared in front of Sul Yang. Covered by a tulle, the proud peak of Ying Keoj was already ticking, almost flying down 3,000 feet. Deep Valley is no exception. With her fair and slender legs together, Ying Keoj knelt down on the dragon robe and knelt down in front of Sul Yang. He also held up the pair of proud peaks in his hands, instead of using his small fists to hammer Sul Yang's legs. And as she moved, the bell placed on the proud peak jingled, adding a strange feeling to the scene. One after another, enjoying the service of the two stunning beauties with different sizes and touches, Sul Yang squinted his eyes and enjoyed it for a moment, but suddenly opened his eyes. "Madam and your majesty have done a great job. I am very comfortable serving them. Next, it is my turn to serve Madam and your majesty." After a long time, the sounds in the palace gradually subsided. Ying Keoj and Qin Wanyu both lay on the bed, looking at each other's blushing face, and feeling each other's shyness in each other's eyes. This time, neither of them was making fun of the other, and even the thoughts of fighting were much smaller. It seemed that the conflict had really eased. After all, we have all seen each other's most shameful sides. The same experience gave the two people similarities, and as a result, the conflicts and relationships between the two were not as sharp as before. Seeing the two people slowly shaking hands and apologizing to each other, Sul Yang nodded with satisfaction. "It seems that my method is still very useful. Somewhere in Daxia, beyond the gap of the abyss, a man who looks like a general is stationed here with a large number of elite soldiers to guard against movements in the abyss. But in recent days, the still calm gap in the abyss has suddenly become agitated, and evil currents are constantly spurting out from it, making people feel as if there is some big conspiracy brewing inside. Somebody come." The man who looked like a general looked at the gap in the abyss, frowned and shouted, "Send a letter to inform your majesty of the situation here, and ask your majesty to make a decision." After being taught a lesson by Sul Yang, Ying Keoj and Qin Wanyu have indeed become much more honest. Although they often call Sul Yang into the palace, at least they no longer have the same thoughts of fighting as before. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 254. Well, if in the past, the two of them had the right to enjoy Sul Yang based on their ability, then now, the two of them enjoy it one at a time, arranged according to the time, and sometimes even mother and daughter enjoy it together. It is indeed much calmer. It's gratifying, it's gratifying. And this afternoon, after lunch, with nothing to do, Sul Yang and his girlfriend lay down in the yard on a deck chair, feeling the warmth of the sun and enjoying the leisurely afternoon. Well, anyway, he and Sulang are both very strong in cultivation, and they have just broken through, and their cultivation has been consolidated, plus neither he nor Sulang's master is here. It's not impossible to just relax and enjoy it. But right now, two beautiful figures fell from the sky and landed directly in front of the two of them. Sul Yang was stunned for a moment, looked up at the two beautiful figures, then quickly stood up, and greeted somewhat unexpectedly, "Sister, Master, you are finally here." Calculating the time since he came to Shengjing, although it seemed short, Suliang had experienced celebrations, ancestor worship, and even the new emperor's enthronement. Calculating it carefully, Suliang, an outsider, is a bit busier than his girlfriend. It feels a bit like a world away. Looking at his master and girlfriend in front of him, Suliang still missed them quite a bit and felt a little emotional even though he had not seen them for more than a month. Sister and master are finally back. Now, the two people in the palace should be able to restrain themselves a little, right? You know, neither sister nor master is easy to deal with, unlike my girlfriend who is so cute and silly. On the other side, Tan Qinja and Wan Qing, who originally had cold faces, saw Suliang, and the coldness on their pretty faces was lifted, revealing a happy smile. Volume 1 Chapter 234 Master and apprentice join forces to fight the landlord, the child can't stand it anymore. Liang. Tan Qinja waved to Suliang and said hello happily. After not seeing each other for many days, Suliang missed her, but why didn't she miss Suliang? Wan Qing, who was beside Tan Qinja, also smiled and waved to Suliang, "Good disciple, come to my master quickly." Hearing this, the corner of Suliang's mouth twitched. His original idea of going over and hugging his sister disappeared immediately. Forget it, she is my sister after all, I can hug her anytime, go now, if master catches me. Hiss. Thinking of that scene, Suliang gasped and started to tremble all over. When the time comes, I'm afraid my end will be worse than the day I taught Chao Ji and Wanyu a lesson. And this time, Qin Benjao also noticed the two of them. After seeing her master and her man's master, Qin Benjao couldn't help but stand up immediately with a big smile on her face. You are finally back. Qin Benjao took small steps and ran over there. As she ran, she opened her arms as if she wanted to hug her. I miss you so much. See this. Tan Qinja unconsciously showed a smile of relief and opened her arms to her apprentice. Yes, this is indeed my disciple. It seems that when the master comes back, he will hug him. It seems that he still belongs to the master in his heart. Humph, you don't look like that heartless man. He has been away for so many days and he hasn't even sent a message. Even if he doesn't know where he is and can't send a letter, it's better to send a message directly. It's not like you don't know how to do it. I feel resentful, miss you very much, and want to hug my man. That's all, since my own Liang won't take the initiative to hug me, then I'll wait until I finish hugging my apprentice before hugging him. As for steps, just give yourself one. After all, you are your own man, so what else can you do? However, just when Tan Qinja had opened her arms, waiting for her apprentice to throw herself into his arms, she was secretly moved by her apprentice's understanding. But Qin Benjao passed her directly, came behind her, threw herself into Wan Qing's arms, and hugged Wan Qing. Well. Burying her head in Wan Qing's arms, rubbing her little head back and forth on Wan Qing's proud peak, Qin Benjao chuckled and said, Sister Wan Qing, Benjao misses you so much. The words fell. Qin Benjao secretly glanced at her master, a hint of narrow-mindedness flashed in her eyes. Hug master? How is that possible? Master is nothing, she is just a bad woman who competes with her disciples for men. But Sister Wanqing is different. With her ice and snow intelligence, she must know very well who is the thigh. Sister Wanqing, this is the thigh, you should hold it tightly. You're so good, my sister misses you too. Wan Qing smiled and reached out to pat Qin Benyao's little head. With a warm smile on her lips, she glanced at her niece. Humph, you stupid niece, you kept jumping around all the way, and you dared to call your aunt around. What happens now, your apprentice doesn't even recognize you. Are you happy or not? Are you surprised? Feeling the strange looks from her apprentice and even men, Tan Kinja still maintained the posture of opening her arms for a hug, feeling very embarrassed. Traitor, traitor, is this how you repay master? I thought that after a few days of separation, you, the traitor, would grow a little bit, but I didn't expect that not only did you not grow, but your character became even worse. Wow, renegade disciple, give me back the emotion I felt just now. Wow wow wow, it's so embarrassing. My apprentice and even Liang are all watching other people's jokes and don't even give me a step up. What should I do? Thinking in her mind, Tan Kinja glanced at the three people present with resentful eyes, pouted, and said nothing in anger. Ahem. Suliang coughed lightly, and while his master was hugging his girlfriend and had no time to take care of himself, he finally dared to step forward, hugged his sister, and comforted, "Sister, don't cry if you don't want to." Liang reluctantly gave her a hug. "Sister, just accept it with gratitude." You. Tan Kinja's face dropped, she hugged Suliang tightly, rubbed back and forth in his arms, and said coquettishly, "Liang, Yao is so disgusting, she actually plays with me, my master, like this. You want to help others take revenge." But before Suliang could answer, Wan Qing, who was on the side, gave her niece a very cold look, like a knife, with vague murderous intent, which was extremely scary. Alas! Tan Kinja was immediately frightened. She screamed like a small animal and lay in her man's arms, not daring to raise her head. That night, pushing Suliang out of the door, Tan Kinja sat in the room with a cold face, looked at the smiling disciple in front of her, and reprimanded, "You are a rebellious disciple. I haven't seen you for many days. It's fine if you don't get close to the master, but you still do it. You dare to tease the master like this. Do you know how embarrassing it is to be a master during the day? Humph, I see that you don't miss me as your master at all. You even wish you could disappear as your master and never come back, right? How can you do that, master?" Qin Benjao continued to smile apologetically, taking out the things she had prepared one by one and placing them in front of Tan Qing. "Master, look, my apprentice has carefully prepared many gifts for you. I miss you, master, very much." "Miss you? Do you miss me that much?" Tan Kinja snorted again, but looking at the exquisite gifts on the table, her anger really dissipated a lot. In another room, Wan Qing also sat upright on the chair, looking at Suliang, who was standing respectfully in front of him, and said calmly, "I haven't seen you for a few days. My dear disciple, have you practiced well?" Reporting to master, this disciple never dares to slack off. Suliang said respectfully, but he didn't feel guilty at all. After all, with his Hunyuan pure Yang Dao body, there is no difference between yin and yang reconciliation and cultivation, and it is even faster than cultivation. "Oh." Wan Qing raised her eyebrows and said impatiently, "In that case, let me come and check it quickly." "Great, I can communicate with him openly again. Come, good disciple, come quickly to my master's arms, ahem, come in front of me." Wan Qing waved and spoke to Suliang, almost revealing her true intention. After blinking, Suliang felt that the scene seemed a bit familiar, as if it had happened before. Suliang sighed, feeling a little melancholy. When other people's masters check their disciples' cultivation, they are actually checking their disciples' cultivation. It's not like their own masters, who say they are checking their disciples' cultivation, but in fact, they have evil thoughts towards their disciples. But after all, it was his master, so Suliang still couldn't refuse him, so he had no choice but to step forward and stand respectfully in front of him, but still keeping a little distance. "Master, please check." "My dear disciple, why are you so far away from your master?" Wan Qing rolled her eyes and said helplessly, "Master, I won't eat you." Come on, let's get closer to master. It's just that, you are so far away from me, how can I stay close to you? Seeing this, Suliang knew that he couldn't hide, so he simply stepped forward and said, "Yes, master." "That's pretty much it?" Wan Qing nodded with satisfaction, stretched out her hand, and hugged her apprentice directly into her arms. With her delicate hands, she hugged her apprentice tightly and moved around subconsciously. Immediately afterwards, putting her little head against Suliang's body, Wan Qing took a deep breath without leaving any trace. Feeling the familiar feeling of safety and warmth, a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth unconsciously, and her little head rubbed against Suliang's arms. "Ahem, master, have you found anything?" Suliang coughed lightly and couldn't help but remind him. To be fair, he also wanted to take the initiative and use this method to make the master retreat. After all, based on past experience, this method seemed to be surprisingly effective. But, seeing that his master's current state didn't seem right, Suliang didn't dare to use it at all. This time, in Suliang's eyes, the master took the initiative a lot, perhaps because he hadn't seen him for many days. Suliang felt that if he really started to take the initiative, the master would immediately come up to him without hesitation. At that time, even the Bodhi state of mind will probably be useless. After all, the Bodhi state of mind is only useful to Suliang himself, but it will not be of any use to Wan Qing. "How can it be so fast?" Wan Qing said calmly, trying her best to hide her true thoughts, but while speaking, she stood up, and the next moment, she hugged Suliang's head and pressed it directly on her proud peak. Moment. Suliang only felt that a softness and elasticity that was far beyond common sense wrapped around him tightly, making people addicted to it unconsciously and unable to extricate themselves. Between the hard breaths, the full fragrance of milk is so tangy that it makes people intoxicated, and they can't help but want to take a few more deep breaths. It's nothing more than being so fierce and oppressive. Feeling the long-lost interaction with his master, Suliang subconsciously closed his hands and hugged his master with his backhand. The soft and delicate body in his arms was still so soft and hot. This familiar feeling made Suliang sigh. "It's been a long time since I've spent time with master like this, and I really miss it." But then, Wan Qing suddenly let go of her hand, looked at Suliang in shock, and opened her mouth slightly. "How is this possible? Master, what's wrong?" Suliang looked at master with some confusion, not understanding what was wrong with master at all. "Your cultivation has actually reached the 9th level of dragon transformation, and your physique, a rare overlord body in the world? What is going on?" While chatting with her apprentice, Wan Qing naturally wouldn't do nothing. She also checked her apprentice's state and physique. "My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator." Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 255. But it was this exploration that really shocked her. I remember that when we separated, Suliang had just entered the dragon transformation realm. In just a short time, he had reached the 9th level of dragon transformation. How can you practice so fast? Moreover, how did Master suddenly obtain the rare overlord body in this world? With the Hunyuan Chunyang Dao body, the overlord body, and the cultivation realm of the 9th level of dragon transformation, the Master is too powerful. Even if it is me, let alone the same realm, even if I take action in the immortal realm, I may not be the Master's opponent. How is this practiced? After leaving his master, Suliang went straight to look for his girlfriend and sister. However, as soon as she entered the door, Tan Qinja directly pulled Suliang onto the bed and said with a bad smile on her face, "Come on, Liang, let's all become landlords." "Say it." Tan Qinja looked at her apprentice, her smile became more obvious. With the lesson learned last time, she naturally knew that she was no match for her man, but what did it matter? Daodazu is originally a one-person game. If two people join forces to deal with one person, even a Liang can't win, right? That's right. It was the master and the apprentice who joined forces to fight the landlord. Call the landlord. Robbing landowners. Tan Kinja and Qin Benjao dealt the cards extremely skillfully, organized their hands, and called the landlords to rob the landlords. The whole process was completed in one go. Before Suliang could react, the game had already started. Looking at this scene, Suliang was a little confused. Why is this different from what I thought? My sister finally came back. Logically speaking, she shouldn't reconcile her yin and yang, right? Why did she start a fight with the landlord? I can't figure it out, I really can't figure it out. Looking at Suliang's appearance, Tan Kinja joked, why, is it because Liang hasn't seen his sister for a long time and can't take his eyes away from her again? Otherwise, why can't he even fight landlords? The words fell. Before Suliang could speak, Tan Kinja pressed her jade feet wrapped in black silk onto Suliang's legs. Her beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, with a lazy but graceful posture, like a queen. Liang, what bad things are you thinking about again? Ahem. Suliang coughed lightly and said nothing. He just arranged the cards in his hand and let his sister's black stocking feet slide towards his vital parts, but he just endured it silently without saying a word. But unexpectedly, Suliang's patience was rewarded by the two of them taking advantage of themselves. Yao you come too. Tan Kinja waved to Qin Benjao and invited her apprentice to join her. Oh. Qin Benjao nodded, as if she thought this was quite fun, so she pressed her white silk feet on Suliang's legs and slid towards the vital spot like a master. This time, one black and one white, two small feet with black and white silk stockings that are equally soft and petite, but with different feelings, jointly punished Suliang, pressing and rubbing them in various ways, which almost made Suliang gasp on the spot. Hiss. Unbearable. We have already reached this point, who can still play cards? Throwing the cards in his hand aside, Suliang decisively gave up playing cards, stretched out his hands, one to the left and the other to the right, grabbing the two little feet in black and white stockings, and started to hit people. Then, the next morning, the sun shines into the room. On the bed, Suliang lay flat on the bed, hugging him from left to right. His girlfriend and sister were all lying in his arms. They looked at Suliang with beautiful eyes and let Suliang's hands roam around his body. With a gentle and happy smile on his lips. This gentle and well-behaved look is simply irresistible. Volume 1 Chapter 235 The Vixen's Party, You Have a Problem. In the evening, Suliang prepared a table full of delicacies and planned to hold a dinner party as a way to welcome his sister and master. Logically speaking, it would be most appropriate to do this kind of thing last night, but after all, the situation last night was a little delicate. We hadn't seen each other for a long time, and we all wanted to express our feelings to each other, so it was naturally delayed. Furthermore, we are all a family, and no one will care about this. Even if there is another reception banquet in a month, it will be no problem. Master, Sister Wonking, welcome back. Qin Benjao raised her wine glass, stood up, and said with a happy smile, it's been such a long time since you guys left. Benjao misses you so much. She almost wanted to go find you several times. After hearing this, Wan Qing raised her wine glass, with a faint smile on her face, you do mean it. However, Tan Kinja rolled her eyes and was very rude towards her apprentice. If you miss me, why did you just give me a slap in the face yesterday? Is this what you call missing? But considering the many gifts given to her by her apprentice yesterday, Tan Kinja didn't say much. She just picked up the wine glass and nodded. But at this moment, two beautiful figures walked into the courtyard, and then a soft voice sounded, hey, it smells so good. Are you making something delicious? Really, You don't call us too when you make delicious food. Does that mean you don't regard us as your own people? As the soft voice approached, these two beautiful figures soon stepped into the door. It was Yang Kaoj and Qin Wanyu who came to visit. When they saw Tan Kinja and Wan Qing, who were slightly unfamiliar in the room, Yang Kaoj and Qin Wanyu were immediately stunned. This time, several women who were closely related to Suliang gathered together. Qin Benjao is pure and cute, with a proud peak yet to grow. She has a slender figure and looks like a cold fairy. She looks extremely holy and heartwarming. Tan Kinja has a cold face, a graceful temperament, a plump figure, and a proud height that is far beyond the reach of ordinary people. It is a height that is difficult for apprentices to reach. She has a sense of déjà vu as a cold queen, making people unable to help but fall to their knees. Compared with Tan Kinja, Wan Qing is more cold and arrogant. The feeling of holiness and charm are perfectly integrated in her body. With this perfect figure, even if they are both women, they may be moved. As Qin Benjao's cousin, Yang Kaoj has the same cuteness as her cousin, but all this cuteness is hidden under her majestic, cold, and arrogant temperament. After ascending the throne, Yang Kaoj's sense of majesty as the Emperor of Great Xia has been perfectly integrated with his own grace and splendor. Just standing there, he is so elegant that people can't help but fall to the ground. As the Queen Mother, Qin Wanyu has a plump and perfect figure, and her appearance is full of charm. Every move she makes is natural. Although the charm emanating from the inside out is not as good as Tan Kinja's charming body, it still makes her charming. Dry mouth and tongue. Looking at the people in front of him, Suliang swallowed hard. This kind of scene is said to be stunning. Shouldn't anyone object? 5 women with different looks, beauty, and temperament, but each with his own merits, are equally beautiful. They are also the most beautiful women in the world, standing in front of Suliang, and they all have a close relationship with Suliang. Suliang felt that if this matter spread, he would probably be killed directly by the men coming from all directions. Standing at the door, stunned for a moment, Yang Kaoj reacted immediately, but changed from his usual majestic, cold and arrogant attitude, and his wanton obedience in front of Suliang, and became more reserved. The jade fingers were mixed together, and Yang Kaoj bowed and greeted respectfully. Emperor Yang Kaoj of Daxia is also Benjao's cousin, and has met sect master Tan. She had met Tan Kinja when she was a child, so she was naturally able to recognize Tan Kinja. This is my cousin's master, who is in the realm of immortality just like myself. My cousin has been carefully trained under her since she was a child, so that she can achieve such achievements now. Therefore, I must be very respectful. Certainly. This so-called self-proclaimed Emperor of Daxia is just Yang Kaoj's desire to let his cousin's master know his identity. It really has no other meaning. Listening to Yang Kaoj's self-introduction, Tan Kinja elegantly put down her chopsticks, covered her face and wiped her red lips. Then, she showed a rare cool and majestic image. Facing Yang Kaoj, she nodded gently. He nodded. I, Tan Kinja, the head of Tiandao sect, have met your majesty. Looking at his sister's cold and majestic image that she had not seen for a long time, Suliang felt a little lost for no reason. Compared with the unscrupulous and astringent beautiful woman in front of him, his sister now looks like the true head of a sect. Thinking about the lady who looked cold, majestic, and graceful when she first met her, and then later, after she became familiar with her, she began to flirt with her and get close to her sister. Later, after harmonizing with her own yin and yang, my sister completely lost her moral integrity and was even able to do things like harmonizing yin and yang with her apprentice's man on his bed. It really feels like two completely different people. At this time, Qin Wanyu on the side also saluted with a soft smile on her face, and greeted Tan Kinja and Wan Qing. I am the current Queen Mother of Daxia, and I have met 2 immortal masters. Yaoer is a child that I have seen since she was little. Sect Master 10 has contributed greatly to her current achievements. I am here, and I would like to thank Sect Master 10 for his careful cultivation. The Queen Mother has spoken harshly. Tan Kinja shook her head and looked at Qin Benjao aside, with a smile on her face. This child is able to achieve what she is today mostly due to her own luck and hard work. I really don't dare to take credit. As he spoke, the scenes of his apprentice following him appeared in Tan Kinja's mind, making Tan Kinja smile with relief. Although my apprentice is a bit sinister now and no longer respects her master, she is still a good child. Looking at the extremely polite faces of Tan Kinja, Wan Qing, Yang Kaoj, and Qin Wanyu, Suliang looked a little strange. What are you doing? Why do you start introducing yourself to each other and being polite to each other? Say goodbye, we are all a family, so why bother? But Suliang didn't say much. They still don't understand the relationship between them, so naturally they will. And one day, after they all know that they are a family, and think about their performance today, what will their expressions be like? Suliang couldn't help but laugh out loud. Suliang was looking forward to this. And this time, Qin Wanyu smiled and chatted with Tan Kinja while thinking to herself. Although she only came in for a moment, her attention was always on Suliang, and she naturally found that the occasional small interactions between Tan Kinja, Wan Qing, and Suliang that they did not notice were very sweet. It completely goes beyond the relationship between elders and younger generations. And this casual feeling proves that the three of them have long been accustomed to this kind of sweet interaction. So, looking at Tan Kinja and Wan Qing suspiciously, Qin Wanyu always felt that the relationship between these two imperial sisters and Suliang was definitely unusual. They were all vixens, and Qin Wanyu could vaguely feel the aura of the same kind. Just when Qin Wanyu looked at Tan Kinja also looked at Qin Wanyu, feeling a little confused. The Queen Mother of Daxia seemed to have something wrong with the way she looked at her man. This is not the way an elder looks at a younger generation at all, but rather like looking at a lover. Looking at the way the Queen Mother of Daxia looked at her man, Tan Kinja seemed to think of herself. Before I had an open relationship with my Liang in front of my disciples, when I looked at my Liang, it was the same look, right? And this time, Qin Wanyu's eyes looked at Tan Kinja, and she looked at Tan Kinja with a somewhat doubtful and searching gaze. They both narrowed their eyes at the same time. The eyes of the vixen looked at the vixen, and they met. It seems that they are all of the same mind. Now that you're here, please sit down. Wan Qing on the side said calmly, I am Suliang's master. Speaking of it, today's dinner was set up by Suliang to welcome me and Qing Yat. Now that you two are here, it's just right. It's a little more lively. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 256. His. Hearing this, Yang Kaoj and Qin Wanyu took a breath of air conditioning, feeling a little surprised. He is actually the master of my husband, Lang Jun. Is that our master? This person must be treated well, and even treated with more respect than Benjao's master. After all, as a woman who is her husband, and the elder of her husband, she is naturally our elders. Thinking in their hearts, the two of them immediately sat down, quickly filled the wine glasses in front of them, and said respectfully, I have met the immortal master. Now that the relationship between the two of them and Suliang has not been made public, and Qin Benjao is still here, the two of them really don't have the courage to call the master directly, for fear that the master will not recognize them. Wan Qing nodded, with a cold and arrogant look. Even when facing the empress and queen mother of a country, she did not hesitate to speak. She just raised the wine glass lightly and put it down again. In response to Wan Qing's actions, Ying Keoch and Qin Wanyu did not dare to say a single unnecessary word. Just kidding, this is my man's master. Even if she hits him a few times, I don't dare to say anything. Elders should be respected no matter what. Seeing that the atmosphere at the dinner table was a little unusual, Suliang coughed lightly, raised his chopsticks and said, "Let's eat the food quickly. I made this with great difficulty. It's what my sister and master like to eat. If it's cool, it's gone, it's lost its taste, but it's not beautiful anymore." Hearing this, all the stunning ladies at the dinner table immediately turned their heads, looked at Suliang, nodded and said, "Okay." Immediately afterwards, the cold arrogance disappeared from Tan Kinja's pretty face, revealing a bright smile. She picked up a piece of delicious food with chopsticks, put it into Suliang's bowl, and said with a smile, "Ailiang, eat this. This is my favorite thing to eat." "Okay, okay." Suliang nodded hurriedly, as if he had realized something, and quickly picked up his rice bowl, intending not to give anyone a chance to pick up food for him. But it's too late. I saw. Qin Benjao pouted, snorted softly, and said with some dissatisfaction, "Master doesn't care about Sulang at all. Since we are serving food to Sulang, it is natural to serve Sulang's favorite food. Master likes it, Sulang may not like it." Saying that, Qin Benjao also picked up a pair of chopsticks, put it into Suliang's bowl, and said with a smile, "Sulang, don't worry about master, eat from me. What I pick is what you like to eat." This time, Suliang didn't dare to answer, for fear that if he agreed, his girlfriend would be dissatisfied. But then, Wan Qing on the side also picked up a piece of delicious food with chopsticks and stuffed it into Suliang's bowl. "It's rare that you remember that my teacher likes this. Try it yourself." As she spoke, fluorescent light flashed in Wan Qing's beautiful eyes. The reason why she likes this dish is actually entirely because master likes it. Before finding Suliang, she often made this dish for herself, but she could never make it taste like master. Finally, I can enjoy master's cooking again. Seeing the actions of Qin Benjao and the others, Ying Keoch stiffly picked up his chopsticks, picked up something he liked very much, and put it into Suliang's bowl. "Lang, ahem, Suliang, try it. After tasting this, I think it tastes good." Qin Wanyu turned to look at Suliang, smiled softly, and looked at him with love in her eyes. She didn't dare to go too far. She just took a bite by herself first, and then used her used chopsticks to pick up some for Suliang. He picked up something and said, "Suliang, I have made this dish for you before. I remember you were very satisfied with it at the time. How about trying it now?" All the beauties in the room were holding dishes for Suliang in unison, all showing tenderness, staring at Suliang with eyes full of love, with soft smiles on their faces. If you ignore the hostility and competition between them, the current situation is pretty good for anyone. But it was this kind of competition and hostility that led to Suliang feeling such dire straits. Looking at the bowls that were already full, Suliang was very embarrassed. Who should eat this? No matter who eats it first, the others will not be satisfied, right? But looking at the eyes of several people staring at him, Suliang understood that it was impossible for him not to eat. His hands were shaking slightly, and he could not even hold the chopsticks firmly. Suliang swallowed hard, feeling extremely nervous. The harmony of yin and yang feels good for a while, but now, if you are not careful, you will be attacked by a hatchet. At this moment, even the dog system started to talk nonsense. Detecting the host's current predicament can be said to be a simulated route of a hatchet size provided by the host. Simulation request: please ask the host to make a request in public. Suliang was shocked when he heard what the system said. "You stupid system, why are you trying to kill me? You still think I didn't die quickly enough and you want me to make a request here? Piss off." And at the same time, Suliang suddenly felt that a small and soft jade foot came to his leg, sticking tightly to his leg, rubbing against it while moving forward. Feeling this familiar touch, Suliang lowered his head and glanced, instantly identifying the culprit. Elder sister. What are you doing? Aren't you afraid of being discovered by Benjeo and Master? Let's stop making trouble, okay? Volume 1 Hashtag Chapter 236 The Attacking Master, Kinja's Glorious Deeds of Taming Her Aunt. Subconsciously, Suliang wanted to take action, intending to control his sister's feet first, or at least cause greater trouble. But before Suliang could take action, on the other side, similarly, a soft and hot little foot came up, rubbing back and forth on Suliang's leg, all the way up. He lowered his head and took another look, sighing melancholy. Wanyu, when did you become so brave? Do you know that if my sister is caught, the most she can do is to be punished by Master and Benjeo, but if you are caught, Master and Sister will most likely tear you apart. Just stop making trouble for me, okay? Feeling the increasingly obvious movements of the two pairs of delicate white jade feet below, Suliang looked solemn. You don't need this, just bring it to your door? Are you still going to let me live? As the movements became deeper and bolder, Tan Kinja and Qin Wanyu looked at Suliang in unison and smiled charmingly at Suliang. I have to say that they are both vixens, and their choices, actions, and reactions are surprisingly consistent. And the two vixens together could cause more damage to Suliang than a double critical hit. Facing the two people's rather active and subtle offensive, feeling the two pairs of soft, delicate, and small white jade feet, they rubbed against each other while approaching their only giant sword, and even they were about to interact with each other. Touch. Suliang couldn't bear it anymore. As the head of a family with a full family of thrones, how could he let the two of them be so provocative? Thinking in his mind, Suliang put down his bowl and chopsticks, smiled and talked to his girlfriend, and reached under the table. Next, one on the left and one on the right, Suliang grabbed the person's two pairs of feet with great precision and squeezed them hard as a lesson. Suliang didn't use much force, but at this exciting moment when everyone was present, Tan Kinja and Qin Wanyu's nerves were already tense, but when Suliang suddenly attacked them, both of them were shocked. Well. Tan Kinja and Qin Wanyu groaned at the same time. They quickly covered their mouths to prevent themselves from screaming, retracted their feet and glared at Suliang. A liang, husband, is good or bad? These small benefits are not given to others. Wan Qing, who heard the two voices, looked at them with doubtful eyes. You two, what happened just now? One sentence, instantly, made the atmosphere tense. Tan Kinja and Qin Wanyu both clenched their little hands tightly, their pretty faces stiff and unnatural, and they tried very hard to think of excuses to cover up their actions just now. Qin Wanyu may not understand Wan Qing, so she is still relaxed, but Tan Kinja is different. She has a deep understanding of how powerful her aunt is, and how much she loves her man. If she knew that she would still eat secretly on such an occasion, then you are dead. And at this tense time, Qin Benjeo seemed to have noticed nothing and chatted indifferently. Oh, Sister Wan Qing, please don't worry about the master and the queen mother. Maybe they were just burned. Sister Wan Qing, where were we talking just now? With these words, Qin Benjeo broke the tense atmosphere. Wan Qing no longer cared about Tan Kinja and Qin Wanyu, and continued to focus on Qin Benjeo. See this. Tan Kinja and Qin Wanyu both breathed a sigh of relief. What a close call, I almost got discovered. Then. Time passed, and with Suliang's best efforts to mediate and Qin Benjeo's help intentionally or unintentionally, the banquet finally ended without any danger. After checking the cultivation level of my good disciple and eating the Feng Feng banquet, Wan Qing officially begins the attack to attack the master. Accompanying Tan Kinja to the place of trial inheritance, but after Tan Kinja succeeded, the two of them were on their way back. Although she has always been bossed around by her niece, Wan Qing still succeeded in getting the information she wanted from her niece. Otherwise, with her and Tan Qing's cultivation, flying all the way, whether they were going to the inheritance trial place or returning from it, the total time would only be a few days. How could it take so long to come back? Wan Qing wants to get as much information as possible. And now, it's time to use the information betrayed by my niece to carry out a strategy and capture the master. Thinking in her heart, Wan Qing was full of confidence and vowed to take down the master. After making the decision, she counted the time and knew that it was almost time for her good disciple to come to pay homage to her, so Wan Qing began to prepare. After a while, dong dong. There was a knock on the door, and then Suliang opened the door and walked in. He looked around suspiciously. When he saw no one in front of him, he tentatively shouted, "Master, Master, are you there? Stop barking." Wan Qing's voice came, and Suliang subconsciously looked back, but immediately stared straight in the eyes. I saw. Wan Qing was wearing the purple cheongsam that she had designed for her when she left. Her lower body was wrapped in black silk, which covered her plump and slender legs. The jade feet she held lightly stepped on the ground and were wrapped in black silk. They were small and exquisite. On that beautiful face, charm and holiness are perfectly combined, bringing about the strange charm of angels and devils coexisting, and this lilac cheongsam with a tall slit shows the holy charm. It is tailored to the body, and a pair of proud peaks are perfectly highlighted. The round and straight figure behind her was wrapped in a cheongsam, which highlighted her silhouette. The high slits on the sides of her beautiful legs extended all the way to her waist, and the looming black silk with lace patterns was eye-catching. Looking further up, you can see those shiny, white, and tight legs, and a slender strap extending from the depths, connected to the back, forming a bow shape, which is even more exciting. This outfit was not meant to be worn in front of outsiders, and Wan Qing had never planned to wear it in front of outsiders. Only in front of her favorite master was she willing to show her most charming side. Gilug. Suliang swallowed hard, feeling that his heart was beating so fast and he couldn't move his eyes away at all. My heart is excited. It's really exciting. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 257. How about it, good disciple, does it look good in this outfit for your master? Speaking of which, this is what you gave to me as a teacher. Wan Qing said with a smile, opened her arms and turned around. And as she moved, her smooth and white arms, the smooth curves under her arms, and even the beautiful black stocking legs under the hem of her cheongsam were all revealed, adding a touch of pure charm to her. This is simply the ceiling of pure desire. Suliang secretly thought, he just couldn't help but pounce on it. Okay. Looks great. Suliang stuttered a little, without even the slightest thought of turning his eyes away. If anything, when he faced Wan Qing before, he was enjoying it, but he was extremely resistant in his heart. So now, without even realizing it, the resistance in his heart was dissipating and dissolving. The only thing left is to enjoy and want. As long as it looks good. As Wan Qing spoke, she walked straight past Suliang and sat on a chair. Her long and beautiful legs were folded together, and the scenery under the cheongsam flashed by, making people linger. Okay, I finally see you again. Now, my good disciple, let me practice the martial arts you have practiced these days for me. It's just a good time for me to see if you have been diligent when my teacher is away. Yes, master. As Suliang spoke, he drew out his long sword and danced a set of exquisite sword techniques in front of his master. After a set of swordsmanship was over, Suliang looked at Wan Qing, waiting for Wan Qing's evaluation. After thinking carefully for a moment, Wan Qing stood up, came to Suliang, nodded first, and then shook her head again. Your sword technique is already very complete, but there are a few subtleties in it, but you didn't perform it well. Forget it, let my teacher show you how to perform it once, and you can understand the rest by yourself. Say it. Wan Qing decisively got into Suliang's arms, her whole body was completely attached to Suliang, and she maintained the same posture as Suliang, intending to lead Suliang to perform sword skills. Yes, follow my master's actions. As Wan Qing spoke, she almost curled up in Suliang's arms, being held tightly by Suliang and guiding Suliang's movements. In the past, Wan Qing also used this method to boldly tease his apprentices under the guise of teaching him martial arts. At that time, Suliang still remembered clearly that although his master was indeed very tempting, Suliang was full of resistance. But this time, Suliang found that things were a little different. He was also personally coaching him in martial arts. Last time, Suliang could feel that his master coveted him. Because of this, no matter how tempting his master was, Suliang didn't think there was anything good about it. Heartwarming. But this time. However, Suliang could feel that his master was really teaching him martial arts, not teasing him. It is true that the two of them danced swords in such an intimate manner. Wan Qing's soft and smooth back was pressed tightly against Suliang's body, and the round and straight part behind her body was rubbing against Suliang's vital parts intentionally or unintentionally. Pass. All of this gave Suliang an indescribable feeling, and it seemed that it was no different from before. But Suliang could feel that the contact between his master and him was no longer the previous one where he wouldn't let go once he grabbed it, but it was as close as possible. This touch point is enough to indicate a change in a person's mood. Call. Suliang finally breathed a sigh of relief. His master was indeed extremely beautiful, but it was precisely this beauty that made Suliang suffer so much when he was teased. But now, the master finally no longer had this intention. While Suliang was relaxing, he noticed something he had never noticed before. The delicate fragrance of his master lingered on the tip of his nose. He lowered his head and saw the upper half of his master's proud peak and the deep valley in the middle. He turned his head slightly, and his master's beautiful face appeared in front of him. Gilug. Looking at his master's serious-eyed face, which perfectly blended holiness and charm, like the perfect combination of angel and devil, this extremely beautiful temperament made Suliang swallow unconsciously. My heart is excited. How could such a master not be moved? His body seemed to be a little hotter, and Suliang was shocked to find that it seemed that for the first time, he had the idea of becoming a master and a disciple. Feeling the changes in her apprentice behind her, Wan Qing showed a slightly proud smile. Sure enough, my niece's information is correct. So far, the master's plan has been quite successful. After a day of practice, Suliang lay on the bed, feeling miserable. She discovered that her master was getting better and better at flirting. Moreover, it was completely different from the master's previous teasing. At this time, the master no longer had any deliberate and tough attitude, but his inadvertent demeanor touched his own preferences everywhere. If this continues, I won't be able to stand it anymore. Suliang sighed melancholy, feeling that he was getting closer and closer to becoming a rebel disciple. In another room, Tan Kinja pulled Qin Benjao to sit on the bed, and proudly showed off to her apprentice, Yao my master, let me tell you, along the way, my aunt has completely impressed me. Wow, is master so powerful? Qin Benjao shouted out, looking at her master with admiration, looking expectantly, waiting for her master to show how she was impressed by Wan Qing's thigh. Fairy looking forward to it. JPG, in short it is very cute. Seeing the appearance of her apprentice, Tan Kinja felt even more proud, and she stood up decisively, with her hands behind her back as if she were a master, and said inscrutably, originally, as a teacher, I don't want to think about the glory of the past, but since you want to listen as a disciple, how can you be stingy and not speak up as a teacher? Then Tan Kinja kept talking, telling her apprentice everything she had ordered her aunt to rub her back, make her bed, cook, and even help her drive away all her opponents from the trial ground. At last, Tan Kinja said, "Yao, look, my aunt is already willing to do this for my master. How can this not mean that my master has convinced her? Master, you are really amazing." Qin Benjao clapped her hands very much. Recalling all the great things about Sister Wan Qing, she shuddered subconsciously and admired her master even more. For being able to impress such a terrifying Sister Wan Qing, I, Qin Benjao, would like to call my master the strongest. But at this moment, squeak! The door to the room was pushed open, and Wan Qing was back. Seeing Wan Qing's figure, Tan Kinja was not afraid at this moment. Instead, her eyes lit up. She put her hands behind her back and boldly joked, "Auntie is finally back. How is it? Today should go smoothly, right? Auntie, you have to thank me very much. If it weren't for me, there would definitely be nothing I can do, right? But I didn't expect it." Faced with Tan Kinja's joke, Wan Qing just sneered twice and looked at Tan Kinja without saying a word. Moment. Tan Kinja felt a little confused. That's not right. According to past practice, my aunt should have made my bed very consciously. How dare you sneer at me? Could it be that she didn't want to get information about Liang? Wrong. It seems that he has given all the information about Liang. Tan Kinja finally understood, her body trembled suddenly, and she wanted to run away in an instant. However, Volume 1 Chapter 237, after the charm body is unsealed, I am already invincible. She just turned her head, but was shocked to see that her aunt had already appeared in front of her, with her hands behind her back, sneering, and was approaching her. "Kinja, you had a great time calling my aunt around before," Wan Qing said expressionlessly, her voice full of coldness. "Now, it's time for you to come back. Auntie, I know I was wrong, just let me go." Tan Kinja was forced back by Wan Qing, her body trembled, and she began to beg for mercy. But begging for mercy is of no use. Soon, Wan Qing was completely approaching Tan Kinja, with a pair of devil's claws stretched out. Ah! A strange scream came from the room. And Qin Benjao, who had listened to her master's bragging before. At this moment, he had no morals to escape. Just kidding, let her take the blame for her master, okay? If she stayed there, wouldn't she also be killed by Sister Wan Qing? Just when Tan Kinja suffered disaster at the hands of her aunt, Qin Benjao had returned to her room, enjoying the hug of her boyfriend, shivering and feeling scared. Seeing his girlfriend's scared look, Suliang asked doubtfully, "Benjao, what's wrong with you?" Hearing her boyfriend's voice, Qin Benjao immediately reached out and grabbed her boyfriend's clothes. She bit her red lips lightly, as if grasping at straws, with tears in her eyes. "Suliang, you must save me." "Save you?" Suliang blinked and became even more confused. In Daxia now, except for his master, there should be no one who can make his girlfriend fear like this, right? Could it be that Benjao had offended his master? Thinking in his mind, Suliang hugged his girlfriend tightly, patted her smooth and beautiful back to comfort her, and said softly, don't be afraid, as long as I am here, no one can hurt my Benjao." "Benjao, tell me, what happened?" Feeling the warmth in her boyfriend's arms, Qin Benjao calmed down a bit, stammering, and began to explain the matter to her man. To put it simply, the master was bragging to himself, but was exposed on the spot. It would be fine if he was an ordinary person, but the person who was bragging was the biggest boss in the family, a big devil-level figure. Logically speaking, this matter has nothing to do with Qin Benjao. After all, Qin Benjao is just watching the fun. No matter how angry the person who is bragging is, it will not involve the people watching the fun. But that's Sister Wanking. Did the big devil tell you this? Qin Binjao is very sure that after her master is dealt with, it will be her turn next. When I came out, master had already begun to be taught a lesson by Sister Wanking. Thinking of the miserable scene she saw master when she came out, Qin Binjao trembled slightly, and the fear in her heart became even more intense. Sulang, you must save me, I don't want to be like master. Woo woo woo. Don't be afraid, master is not that unreasonable. Suliang patted Qin Binjao's back to comfort him. Don't worry, as long as your man is here, master won't do anything to you. But at the same time, Suliang also vaguely guessed why the master was so familiar with his weaknesses. This is basically what my sister sold. Otherwise, why would my sister be able to summon the master? Subconsciously rubbing his forehead, Suliang felt a little headache. Since the master dares to teach his sister a lesson, it means that his sister has sold herself completely and has no value to the master. The master was already enough of a headache, but now it's better. The master has obtained his own information and received a wave of epic level enhancements. How can you play this? My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 258. After a long time, the groans and screams in the room gradually stopped, the door was opened, and Wan Qing walked out of the room, clapping her hands, feeling satisfied. The depression that had accumulated in her heart for many days was finally cleared away. At this moment, Wan Qing felt comfortable both physically and mentally. With her hands behind her back, she planned to find her good disciple to exchange feelings. To conquer the master, you need to persevere and persevere. In the room. Well. Tan Kinja groaned and gasped subconsciously, it hurt. At this moment, she was lying on the bed, supporting her body with a pair of pink and tender arms, trying not to let her proud peaks, which had grown several times larger, come into contact with the bed. Looking at the round and straight spot behind her that had grown a lot bigger, and then looking at the proud peak in front of her that was so much bigger, Tan Kinja wanted to cry but had no tears, pouted her lips, and her eyes were full of tears. Looking miserable. Auntie, she was so cruel. I just bossed her around and showed off her strength. This was a deal between you and me. Why should Auntie be so cruel to her? His front and back were all swollen. How could he reconcile his yin and yang with a Liang like this? And just then. Squeak. The door was opened again. Tan Kinja's body trembled subconsciously, and she suddenly turned her head to look behind her, thinking that her aunt was back again. But soon, she breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, okay, it's not my aunt, it's my Liang. Holding back the pain in her body, Tan Kinja stood up and blinked her beautiful eyes, looking deeply moved. Liang, are you here to comfort me? Liang, you're the best. You're not as cruel as my aunt, and you're not like Yao, the rebellious disciple who ran away without moral integrity. You are the only one in this world who treats me well. But halfway through the words, Tan Kinja's voice gradually became quieter, and in the end, she couldn't even speak a word. It's really strange. Liang is obviously smiling at others, but why does Liang's smile make people shudder? Sitting next to Tan Kinja, Suliang stretched out his hand and caressed his sister's beautiful face. Feeling the soft and elastic feel in his hand, Suliang smiled even more. Sister, I have something to ask. And you? Yes, what is it? Tan Kinja said subconsciously, with a little tremor in her voice unconsciously. I don't know, what did my sister do during the time she was away? Why, I feel like Master suddenly understands me very well. No, it's nothing. Tan Kinja shook her head, bit her lip and said perfunctorily, Auntie is your master after all. After spending so much time with you, I should be able to get to know you better, right? However, Tan Kinja's perfunctory tactics had no effect on Suliang. Sister is dishonest. Suliang showed a big smile, and looked at his sister's awkward appearance with her jade arm supporting her body. He seemed to realize something, and decisively reached out his hand, slowly holding Tan Kinja's shoulders. Dishonest sister, just he should be punished. The words have fallen. Suliang pressed down hard. In an instant, Tan Kinja's proud peak, which had been kneaded by Wanqing until it almost exploded, squeezed the bed tightly. A feeling of pain hit her, and without even thinking, Tan Kinja screamed. Then. It was miserable for Tan Kinja. After being taught a lesson by her aunt, she was once again taught a lesson by her own man. In the room, bursts of screams could be heard, but gradually, the screams changed and turned into an indescribable muffled sound. Early the next morning, Qin Benjao got up early and looked at the master's room with the door still closed. She bit her red lips lightly. After hesitating for a moment, she decided to visit her master. It can be regarded as a little concern for the master. But when she entered the room, she saw Tan Kinja forming a cross shape with her body and a bench. At this moment, Tan Kinja's eyes were filled with tears, and she was constantly sucking in the cold air. No matter behind her or in front of her, she did not dare to touch anything. It is enough to show that the lesson last night was more cruel. Seeing the master's appearance, Qin Benjao immediately took a breath of air and felt greatly shocked. Master, it is really miserable. And this time, Tan Kinja, who discovered Qin Benjao, turned her head around, looking pitiful, and muttered aggrievedly, "You guys, you all bully me, I won't play anymore. Fight back, people must fight back." Roaring in her heart, Tan Kinja at this moment was unexpectedly quick thinking and quickly made a plan to fight back. Then, after cultivating her body and back, Tan Kinja approached Suliang and said coquettishly, "Aoyang, you've never seen anyone dance before. How about you let me dance for you?" As he said this, Tan Kinja smiled coldly in her heart. "I didn't expect it, Aoyang, sister. I am going to use my performance to make you pay the price." Suliang had no doubts about his sister's request. "Isn't it just a dance? Considering the relationship between myself and my sister, this is just a little fun between the two of them. How could I say no? Furthermore, my sister has a soft body and gentle movements, which is suitable for dancing. However, I have never seen my sister dance. I have to say that this is a very regrettable thing. Now that you have the opportunity, you must not miss it no matter what, otherwise, when you get the chance to see it next time, you don't know when it will be." Then, Suliang nodded and said expectantly, okay, I've wanted to see my sister dance for a long time, but I never had the chance. Now, I finally got my wish." Seeing that Suliang agreed decisively, Tan Kinja showed a proud smile on her lips. Very good, as expected, the plan was indeed flawless, and Aoyang took the bait. Aoyang, I let you bully me a few days ago, now, let you see how powerful I am." She stuck out her fragrant tongue and gently licked her red lips. It was obvious that Tan Kinja just smiled softly, but in Suliang's eyes, she was so charming at this moment that it made people's hearts beat. "Aoyang, you must watch carefully," Tan Kinja said in a soft voice. Just one voice made people feel like their mouth was dry and their blood was gushing. It was as if some of the instincts in the body were awakened by Tan Kinja's smile. But at this moment, Suliang didn't pay attention to the changes in his body at all. His attention was completely attracted by Tan Kinja's dancing posture. "I saw." Tan Kinja relaxed her slender waist and danced a graceful song. His dancing posture was as graceful as a startled dragon, with flying luen and phoenixes, as if in a dream. There was no accompaniment of music, but in Suliang's ears, a piece of music perfectly suited Tan Kinja's elegant dancing posture. Looking at Tan Kinja's dance, Suliang couldn't help but swallow. He felt that the dance seemed to have a strange magic power, which made his whole body and mind immersed in it, becoming a part of the dance and unable to extricate himself. In the dance, Tan Kinja's plump and perfect figure was perfectly displayed. Her proud peak, slender waist, flat belly, and even the perky part behind her were all in this dance, making her most beautiful. The perfect side is shown. At this moment, Suliang was so teased by his sister that he couldn't help but pounce on her. But in fact, Tan Kinja's dancing posture is beautiful, but before, it was not so powerful at all. And the reason why her dancing posture can create such an effect is all because of the changes in her charming body. Since the charm body was unsealed, the charm body that had bound Tan Kinja for countless years has completely become her help and brought her a new charm. A charm dance can stir up the heart silently. This effect has been sublimated to the level of the soul. Unless the soul is extremely powerful, or there is a soul-related means and magic, it cannot be broken at all. But it's a pity. This charming dance is already extremely charming, but it has no effect at all. Feeling the changes in his body and mind, Suliang's heart was guarded by the Bodhi state of mind, which allowed his already powerful soul and mind to stand firm like an ancient rock tree under Tan Kinja's charm, without being shaken at all. Looking at Tan Kinja, who was getting closer and closer to him while dancing, Suliang rolled his eyes and seemed to understand his sister's purpose. At the same time, a brilliant plan came to Suliang's mind. Looking at the way my sister looks like this, it seems that she wants to use this charm dance method to temporarily charm herself and make herself look embarrassed in front of her girlfriend and master. If this is the case, then it is better to take advantage of the trick and directly counterattack her. Thinking in his mind, Suliang decisively acted like he was charmed. Looking at Tan Kinja, who was getting closer, he even stood up and stretched out his hand towards Tan Kinja. Seeing Suliang's appearance, Tan Kinja relaxed her vigilance and felt extremely proud. She subconsciously thought that her man had really been tricked. But just when she came to her man, ready to pick the fruits of victory, Suliang suddenly returned to normal, and pushed Tan Kinja down on the sofa with his backhand. Then, he moved forward and gave his sister a different kind of waldong. "Sister is not good," Suliang said with a smile. "I just wanted to watch my sister dance, but my sister secretly tried to charm me. Gee, sister, you are so good to me. Liang, you, listen to my explanation." Tan Kinja explained in a panic that she was not worried that her man would not trust her because of this. There was no need to question the relationship between them. What she is really worried about is what her man will do to her next. You know, she and her man are not the only ones here at this moment. The apprentice and aunt are all watching from the side. While speaking, Tan Kinja also felt a little humiliated in her heart. She finally discovered that she was increasingly helpless against her own Liang. In the past, when her cultivation was much higher than that of her man, and her charming body was still suppressed, she could still do something to her man. But as her charming body gradually unsealed and the effect became more powerful, she was unable to do anything to her own man. What the hell is this? Thinking in her heart, Tan Kinja was about to cry. But fortunately, what she was most worried about did not happen. This time, Suliang did not continue to lecture, and rarely showed his warm side, with a warm smile on his face. "Okay, sister, why do you have to be like this? I was just joking with you, my sister's dance is very beautiful." Not only did Suliang not continue to teach him a lesson, but he started flirting with her in the opposite direction. His words made Tan Kinja's face turn red and she was extremely emotional. He helped Tan Kinja up and sat on the sofa together. Suliang put his arms around Tan Kinja's soft and slender waist and asked, pretending to be curious, "Sister, what happened when you went to the trial site this time, what?" Still immersed in her man's warm behavior before, and being hugged by her man in front of her apprentice and aunt, Tan Kinja's face turned red and she felt extremely embarrassed. But after hearing what her man said, Tan Kinja still told the story in detail. Even speaking of excitement, Tan Kinja almost told Wan Qing's humiliating history of having no choice but to serve her for information. Suliang also showed great interest in this section. However, Wan Qing's cold gaze on the side kept pressing Tan Kinja, and Tan Kinja had no choice but to hold back the interesting things in Heduan. Time passes and the days pass. During this period, even though he was busy with government affairs, Yang Kaoj often came to the mansion and stayed by Suliang's side in the name of visiting Qin Binjao. And Qin Wanyu, just like clocking in at work, came to this mansion every day, seizing all the time to get tired of Suliang, staying there all day long. Finally, you are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 259. With such intense interactions between Qin Wanyu and Yang Kaoj, Tan Kinja finally discovered the clues. Although the two of them often came in the name of visiting Qin Binjao, Tan Kinja could clearly see that the two of them had no intention of paying attention to Qin Binjao. Every time he came to the mansion, he casually said a few words to Qin Binjao, and then all gathered around Suliang. They stayed there for a long time, making it impossible for others to get involved. Not to mention, as Tan Kinja saw with her own eyes, Yang Kaoj and Qin Wanyu had done such an extremely intimate thing as holding hands with Suliang very naturally, no fewer than dozens of times. This time, Tan Kinja was finally able to confirm that there was definitely a big problem between her Liang, the Empress of Daxia, and even the Queen Mother. Looking at Yang Kaoj, Qin Wanyu, and Suliang leaving together, Tan Kinja took a deep breath and decided to start interrogating her Liang. Volume 1 Chapter 238 The fairy took the initiative to send her boyfriend out, and the clown turned out to be me. How dare you, Liang, eat outside behind my back. This time, it depends on whether I will spare you or not. Then, the interrogation march has officially begun. After Suliang sent Yang Kaoj and Qin Wanyu away, Tan Kinja immediately called her apprentice and aunt, grabbed Suliang, and returned to the room. Plop. After a muffled sound, Suliang was pinned down on the chair by Tan Kinja extremely violently. Sister, Binjao, master. Looking at the three women in front of him with gloomy faces and looking to settle a score with him, Suliang said in confusion, "What are you doing? Did I do something wrong?" There was a hint of coldness in Tan Kinja's voice, and she scolded mercilessly, "Liang, you know what you have done. Now, I will give you a chance to explain it to yourself. Otherwise, if the three of us are forced to ask, you will have something to eat next." Master is right. Qin Binjao nodded her little head, as if agreeing with her master. Wan Qing, who was on the side, didn't say a word, but the coldness on her face was undisguised. Obviously, she also agreed with Tan Kinja's words. Where is this? What on earth do you want me to explain? Suliang shook his head helplessly and said rather amusingly, "Sister, what do you want me to explain to you? Could you please explain it clearly? I really can't guess what you're saying without starting or ending. Do you still want me to explain clearly what you did?" Tan Kinja looked angrily and laughed, holding a small leather whip that she got from somewhere in her hand, and slapped it on the ground, as if she wanted to interrogate and extract a confession. "Okay, since you can't think of anything, get up, then let me remind you. Liang, let me ask you, what happened between you and that Yang Kaoj, Qin Wanyu? Which one of them has an unusual relationship with you?" After hearing this, Suliang suddenly realized that this was what his sister was asking. He had never planned to hide his relationship with Yang Kaoj and Qin Wanyu, so Suliang was not too panicked at this moment. Not to mention, these two people are tired of being here every day, and it is normal for them to be discovered. For Sul Yang, now that things have happened, whether it is out of love or anything else, he must be responsible for them. As for the rebuke and anger from my sister's side, this is what you deserve, just bear it. Then Sul Yang confessed directly, "Sister, I'm sorry, Kaoj and Wanyu are both my women." One sentence made Tan Kinja stunned. She stretched out her finger and pointed at Sul Yang tremblingly. After a moment, Tan Kinja stepped forward and pressed Sul Yang's head on top of her proud height. She pulled Sul Yang's ears with her slender hands and pulled them to both sides. As a lesson. Aha! Sul Yang groaned, but did not dare to struggle, for fear of making his sister angry. But his actions were equivalent to using his own face to rub against Tan Kinja's proud peak. Feeling the strange feeling coming from the proud peak, Tan Kinja's pretty face instantly turned red, and her heart was filled with embarrassment. Letting go of Sul Yang, Tan Kinja took a step back, glared at Sul Yang fiercely, and then said angrily, You, let me tell you what is good about you. I originally thought that you were only related to one of them, and the other one was not involved in the game, but I didn't expect that you would not let go of both of them. How long have I been away from you, and you have already brought out two more? Are you worthy of Benjeo by doing this? Immediately, Tan Kinja looked at her apprentice who was standing by her side and seemed to be shocked by the news. She hurried forward, hugged her silly apprentice, and comforted her softly, Yao, don't be sad, you have to believe in Liang. No matter what he loves most is you. You can't even take your position as master, let alone the two of them, from you. However, faced with the comfort from her master, Qin Benjeo looked like she knew everything, and nodded matter-of-factly, Master, you don't need to comfort me. In fact, I have long known about the relationship between Sulang and Sister Ying, the Queen Mother. These words made Tan Kinja and Sulyang stunned. Benjeo, she actually knew? Then why is she still looking so calm? Could it be that you were suddenly hit by such exciting news and you couldn't bear it? Before Sulyang and Tan Kinja could guess Qin Benjeo's thoughts, Qin Benjeo's next words immediately made Sulyang and Tan Kinja dumbfounded. Master, let me tell you, Sister Ying and the Queen Mother have confessed this matter to me before. I really don't mind at all. After all, it was my fault that Sulang can be with Sister Ying and the Queen Mother. Opportunities and assists. At this moment, the truth is revealed. Sulyang was completely stunned. Thinking of all the hiding and covering up and hesitation about whether to confess to his girlfriend, at this moment, he just felt extremely embarrassed. Co-authored, from beginning to end, my girlfriend, Cao Ji, and Wanyu are actually very clear about the relationship between them, and I am the only one who is kept in the dark. For a moment, Sulyang felt like his mind was exploding. But soon, Sulyang adjusted his mentality, and together with Tan Kinja and Wan Qing, stared at Qin Benjeo fiercely. Benjeo! The three of them shouted Qin Benjeo's name in unison, their voices cold and cold, full of murderous intent. Tan Kinja grabbed his apprentice by the collar and lifted him up. Tan Kinja's voice was extremely cold, you dare to push your man out, but instead create opportunities and assists for your man and other women. Are you stupid? Before Qin Benjeo could say anything, Wan Qing on the side said with the same cold voice, why are you talking so much nonsense to her? If the apprentice is disobedient, then he will naturally be taught a lesson. Indeed. Sulyang stepped forward eagerly, Benjeo has learned bad things now, and she really should be taught a lesson. Looking at the three approaching figures, Qin Benjeo's limbs were in the air, struggling constantly, her eyes frightened. What do you want to do? Don't come over here. After a long time, Qin Benjeo lay on the bed, covering her body that was already similar in size to her master's. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears, and she looked at the three people in front of her with resentful eyes, looking aggrieved. Normally, seeing Qin Benjao like this, Suliang and the others might have softened their hearts and let her go. But this time, none of the three people showed mercy. I really don't dare to be soft-hearted. As the main palace official, why does Qin Benjao always put her own man aside? Tan Qinja, Wan Qing, and even Suliang were a little worried. If Qin Benjao was ignored, she might want to push her man towards her whenever she saw a stunning woman. If that's the case, I'm afraid it won't be long before the entire Tiandao sect can't pretend. Thinking of that kind of scene, Suliang and the three of them all trembled and felt a little chilly. Then, the three of them put aside the only softness in their hearts towards Qin Benjao and said sternly, "Tell me, do you know where you went wrong?" I'm right. Qin Benjao covered the swollen part behind her and shook her little head, as if she was right. But in fact, until now, Qin Benjao believed that she was innocent. Until now, she still doesn't understand what's wrong with her. In her opinion, the empress of a country who wins over her sister is also graceful, unparalleled, a genius, and may become a giant in the future. As for the queen mother, as the queen mother of a country, even if her cultivation talent is not considered, the power she holds in her hands is first class. By bringing these two people to your husband, you are giving your husband more help. I have to say that Qin Benjao, the good girlfriend of the new century, is really touching. However, her touching feeling is earth-shaking, but it is destined not to be understood by others. Seeing Qin Benjao still looking stubborn, Suliang and the others looked at each other, nodded slightly, and soon exchanged opinions. What should I do if my child has a brain disease and is not good at old age? Most of the time, he is used to it. Just give him a spanking and he will be fine. Then, Qin Benjao, who had no way to turn for help, was brutally punished by the three men. It was extremely miserable. It was really pitiful to the extreme. In the palace, holding the news from the guard in the abyss gap in his hands, Yang Kaoj frowned slightly, his expression slightly solemn. Not just Wing Kaoj. Even the ministers present looked a little gloomy, and they all had a bad feeling. At this moment, the entire court was filled with an indescribable sense of solemnity, which almost made people breathless. To know. This is disturbing news from the abyss. Even the top Shangzhou family in the world will definitely not be able to ignore this news, let alone a dynasty that does not even have top masters. My dear friends, you all know the content of this news. Can anyone tell me how I, Daxia, should deal with the restlessness in the abyss? Yang Kaoj put the paper with the message aside, straightened up, lightly opened his red lips, and spoke calmly with a majestic and domineering look. After hearing this, all the ministers below looked at each other, but no one spoke rashly. For Daxia, the existence of the abyss gap is a double-edged sword. There is a gap in the abyss. No matter which force is there, it is impossible for any force to cross the gap to attack Daxia. Therefore, Daxia has one less enemy. But, in the gap between the abyss, there are many crises after all. If one day it breaks out, how can Daxia alone be able to withstand it? Therefore, in the eyes of everyone in Daxia, this abyss gap is not only their natural barrier, but at the same time, it also represents an extremely strong sense of crisis. Seeing that no one spoke, Yang Kaoj stood up, waved his sleeves and said, "Retreat from the court." Immediately, he walked out of the palace on his own, planning to find someone who had experienced it personally to discuss the matter in detail. Yang Kaoj knew that with Daxia's current strength, it was obviously impossible to withstand the explosion in the abyss gap. So, we still have to find a way to calm down this restlessness. But the difficulty with this method is that they simply can't figure out the source of the restlessness. The slender hands were clasped tightly, and an uneasy feeling arose in Yang Kaoj's heart. Looking in the direction of the mansion, Yang Kaoj sighed. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 260. Hope, he really knows what to do. In the residence of Suliang and Qin Binjao, Ying Kaoj left the palace in a hurry and ran straight here. After all, in the entire Shengjing, only Suliang and Qin Binjao had personally experienced the evil invasion. As for Ying Kaoj's understanding of her cousin, she knew very well, how could her cousin care about the root cause? Therefore, it is more reliable to find Suliang. However, when she just stepped into the inner courtyard, her footsteps suddenly stopped. At this moment, she keenly felt that something was wrong with the atmosphere in the inner courtyard. Ahem. With a slight cough, Ying Kaoj said calmly, I suddenly remembered that there are still some memorials that have not been dealt with, so I will go back to deal with the memorials first. See you next time. After that, Ying Kaoj turned around and left. The majestic Empress of Great Xia actually wants to run away. However, before she could take a step, Wan Qing was already standing in front of her, looking her up and down playfully. Senior Wanqing, what are you? Ying Kaoj's body immediately stiffened, he swallowed unconsciously, and asked with some difficulty. If his cousin had stopped him, Ying Kaoj would have dared to break in, but this person was Lang Jun's master. It completely blocks the way you want to leave. Wan Qing didn't say anything. He just looked at her for a moment and then said, as my good disciple's master, I have the responsibility to test your good disciple's new harem's character. Your Majesty, are you ready to face this test? And the moment the words fell, a powerful sense of oppression that far exceeded the realm of immortality emerged from Wan Qing's body, and in an instant, it enveloped Ying Kaoj. At this moment, even though he was already in the immortal realm, even though he was protected by the ancestral dragon, Ying Kaoj was still like a lonely boat in the waves, and could only barely resist and hold on precariously. After hearing Wan Qing's words, Ying Kaoj subconsciously looked at Suliang. Seeing Suliang's wry smile but unable to refute, he instantly understood that his relationship with his husband had been completely exposed. Turning to look at Wan Qing again, Ying Kaoj gritted his teeth and simply revealed the truth, please, Senior Wan Qing and Binjao, please don't criticize him too harshly. All this was done on my own initiative and has nothing to do with him. He did not make any mistakes. As he spoke, Ying Kaoj showed a faint smile on his face. Since Lang Jun arrived in Shengjing, he has helped me and protected me in every way. From that time on, I have fallen in love with him. But not only did I not repay him, I misunderstood him and almost made a big mistake. From the moment all misunderstandings dissipated, I, Ying Kaoj, faced my own heart and understood my feelings for him. Therefore, in this life, I only hope to be the husband's person and stay with him. Other than that, what benefits and status are there? I have no other intention of winning Cao Ji. After saying these words, everyone present was shocked by Ying Kaoj's determination and intention. Volume 1 Chapter 239 The Concubine and the Queen Mother's Softness, The Abyss Moves. Qin Binjao, who was hiding in the dark, was amazed and felt amazing. She only knew that Sister Ying really liked her husband, but she didn't expect that her cousin would sink like this. After Ying Kaoj finished speaking, the atmosphere immediately fell silent. Wan Qing looked at Suliang with amusement in her eyes. Of course she is aware of Master's charm, otherwise, she would not have been deeply in love with Master until now. But I had just been separated from my Master for a few days, and my Master actually let this girl fall to this point. What on earth did my Master do to this girl? Feeling the gazes from everyone present, Suliang Dao looked aside and stared at Ying Kaoj, his eyes unblinkingly staring at him, full of love. For a moment, Suliang Dao felt a little embarrassed. To be honest, Suliang himself didn't know when Ying Kaoj would be so affectionate towards him. The cow's bell might have some effect, but if Ying Kaoj didn't think so, even 100 more bells would have no effect. Certainly. These problems are trivial now. What is it like for a woman to tell her how much she loves herself in front of other women? Suliang was indeed very happy to be loved so deeply, but it was also very embarrassing. The corners of his mouth twitched, and Suliang almost wanted to run away immediately. And just then, Qin Benjiao suddenly walked out of her hiding place and took the initiative to appear in front of Ying Caoj. She held Ying Caoj's hand and said with brilliant eyes, "Sister Ying, I didn't expect you to love Suliang so much." Seeing his cousin appear, Ying Caoj's body trembled, but he still restrained his urge to run away. He bit his lower lip lightly and looked at the ground with his beautiful eyes, not daring to look at his cousin at all. "Guilty, Benjiao, I'm sorry for you." No matter what, he was the man who robbed his cousin. Even though his cousin had agreed to the matter, in the end, he was the one who felt sorry for her. However, I didn't expect Ying Caoj. Faced with her guilt, Qin Benjiao looked gentle, shook her head, smiled, and said, "How could Sister Ying be sorry for saying this to me? Love is not something that can be unreasonable. If you like it, you like it. Why do you need to worry so much about Sister Ying? Besides, I'm very happy that Sister Ying likes Suliang so much." "Benjiao," he said with a trembling voice. At this moment, Ying Caoj was completely moved by his sister. He took the initiative to step forward, hugged Qin Benjiao, and said softly, "Sister knows that Lang Jun's favorite is actually you, so, don't worry, Benjiao, my sister will never compete with you for this position. From now on, when I'm at home, how about I call you sister?" Hearing this, Qin Benjiao's eyes lit up, she was extremely happy, and she kept nodding her head, okay, I knew it would be best to win against my sister. At home, cousins call cousins sister, while outside, cousins call cousins sister. This relationship is really becoming more and more complicated. And just when Wan Qing was testing Ying Chao Ji, Tan Qinja had already left the mansion, but she went directly into the palace and met the Queen Mother in the palace. "When Master Tan comes to my place, it really makes me feel plump and radiant." With a soft smile on her face, Qin Wanyu led Tan Qinja to sit down, poured tea and water, and placed it in front of Tan Qinja. "Master Tan, please forgive me, I am just a secular dynasty here, but there is no such thing as the immortal sect of Master Tan. Those strange teas in it, therefore, can only be served with crude tea." Having said that, what Qin Wanyu brought out was top-notch tea that was rare in the secular world. Although it has no special effects, its mellow taste and fragrant fragrance, coupled with its scarce production, have always been a sought-after commodity in the secular world, and even some weaker dynasties cannot get it. Treating Tan Qinja with such cherished things, I have to say that Qin Wanyu is somewhat wealthy. "It doesn't matter, I'm not that picky." Tan Qinja shook her head, picked up the teacup and took a sip, and then said, "I came here today because I have an important matter to ask the Queen Mother." Qin Wanyu blinked and seemed to understand Tan Qinja's thoughts instantly, but she still pretended not to know and asked, "Please tell me, Master Tan. Could it be that the Queen Mother really doesn't know?" Tan Qinja smiled playfully, but stared at Qin Wanyu with no emotion in her eyes. "I really don't know." Qin Wanyu also showed a playful smile. These two mature elder sisters have been engaging in various verbal and emotional confrontations since they first met. Now, this confrontation has gradually heated up. However, Tan Qinja didn't want to continue this boring game. She didn't come here to play with the Queen Mother. She did have her own purpose. Then, Tan Qinja said directly and honestly, "Let me make it clear that I, like Yao are both Liang's women. So, Queen Mother, you went behind my back and stole my man. How should we settle the bill? How to calculate? Otherwise, forget it." Just like Tan Qinja discovered that Qin Wanyu's relationship with Suliang was similar, Qin Wanyu had actually discovered the relationship between Tan Kinja and his own king a long time ago. And since Qin Binjao is the main palace, that means that Tan Kinja, the master, secretly ate his apprentice's man? In this case, you and I are doing the same thing, so why are you embarrassed to talk to me? They are all vixens. Anyone who steals food will be eaten one day. Is this really normal? But even though she thought so in her heart, Qin Wanyu didn't dare to say this. Not to mention that Tan Kinja's cultivation level is stronger than his own. Even in the heart of the king, it is still unknown whether he can compare with Tan Kinja's. Naturally, Qin Wanyu would not do such a thing that would offend others to death. Then, after blinking, Qin Wanyu was quite sensible and relented decisively on the spot. She stood up and bowed to Tan Kinja Yingying. Her voice was gentle and moving. "Sir, my little sister is polite here." Hearing this, Tan Kinja immediately narrowed her eyes with enjoyment, feeling a little carried away. No wonder, my apprentice always wanted to call her sister. It turns out that being called sister is such a comfortable thing. Having the queen mother of a country call her sister, she finally had someone she could bully. Tan Kinja felt a small sense of accomplishment inexplicably. If she voluntarily calls herself sister, it is not an unacceptable status quo for Qin Wanyu to become one of her Aoyang's women. After everything was settled, another dinner was held tonight at the residence of Suliang and Qin Binjao. However, unlike the last dinner party, which was full of exploration and fighting, this time, it was a completely different atmosphere. At the dinner table, Qin Binjao, Tan Kinja, Wan Qing, Ying Kaoch, and Qin Wanyu got along very harmoniously with the other girls. In Suliang's opinion, this situation is simply a miracle. "Sister Binjao, try this. I made this specially for you," Ying Kaoch said with a smile and put some vegetables into Qin Binjao's bowl. From the look on her face, it seemed that she was really as she said. At home, she really regarded her sister as her elder sister. On the other side, Qin Wanyu picked up a glass of wine and toasted to Tan Kinja, "Sister Kinja, come, you and I have a drink together. You and I, sisters, finally have this opportunity to get together. How can we do it if we don't drink to the fullest?" As Sister Wanyu said, "Come on, you and me, sisters, have a drink." At this time, Tan Kinja was extremely satisfied as she listened to the Queen Mother of Daxia's words. Her sense of accomplishment continued to accumulate, and she was almost swollen. Hum, Yao let me call you sister every day. You see, now my teacher is also a sister. As Suliang's master, Wan Qing has not officially conquered Suliang yet. At this moment, no one except Qin Binjao dared to call her sister. But even so. But the others also spoke of Senior Wan Qing and Master, which made Wan Qing feel much better, and she naturally spoke more. And just when the girls were laughing and playing and drinking, everything seemed so harmonious. But Suliang is the only one.